Hello and welcome to the Cheese Room podcast, a Monday night show for you, Bank Holiday Monday. So, hope everyone's had a good bank holiday. Here to talk about our most recent victory. It's nice to be able to say victory on a consistent basis, isn't it? Against Bournemouth. And we have a 5 individual panel here to discuss and review the game. So, Becky, how's your bank holiday been?
Slightly bizarre one for me because those of you that are eagle-eyed will notice it's not my normal backdrop. And anybody who was watching Holly's Hotspurs earlier as well, I am actually on holiday. A very, very last minute Thursday night, I looked at next week's forecast and said to Dave, nah, I'm not going to stay in England. It's going to rain for the weekend. We're going to go away. So literally booked the campsite, booked the ferry, and then Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, we were on the ferry. So my experience of the Bournemouth game was listening to it whilst driving across Belgium, and then managed to watch Match of the Day on Saturday. But yeah, great to be here. That's why I'm not hosting, because I was just saying off air, I've got everything plugged in. It's 10 o'clock local time as well here, and if I suddenly disappear, it's because either the Wi-Fi in the caravan's dropped out or my computer has lost charge. But hopefully I'm here for the duration, so it's all good.
Pleasure to have you. And Stu, lovely to have you on the show. How was your bank holiday weekend?
Yeah, all good. Weather was a bit ropey in Bristol, but just chilled watching football all day on Saturday and Sunday. Enjoyed some cracking Premier League games, including our one. Looking forward to having a chat about another positive performance and result. Yeah,
thanks for coming on. Seb, I don't think I've been on the show with you for quite a while, so
no, it's been a while.
Yeah. Have a good bank holiday, I hope.
I came back. I've been out of the country for a couple of 2.5 weeks. So came back on Thursday, down your neck of the woods, James, down Portsmouth for Victorious Festival, which was really good. And then drove back, got back early hours yesterday, 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And where would we be without Premier League? Whatever happens, there's something to talk about, isn't there? Not just our games, but it's pretty much every game has incidents and drama, and kind of makes you wonder what you do with yourself on a Saturday afternoon in the summer, because it's good to be back.
Funnily enough, I know someone who is friends with one of the managers or something at Victorious, and I had an offer. They'd offered me a ticket to go, basically, but had to have lunch with the family. Thanks for coming on. And my best mate on the show. Thank you for coming on, Isaiah. How was it wasn't a bank holiday for you, was it? But how was your weekend anyway?
Pretty good weekend. And at the moment, while unemployed, every day is a bank holiday. So I'm enjoying myself all the same. I'm really happy to be on. I was able to watch the Bournemouth game in its entirety and worked up a couple stats. So ready to go.
Beautiful. Right, so I'll go first to Becky. Starting lineup, was that everything you expected? Bar maybe Maddison, who was a bit of uncertainty about. It was pretty much as expected, do you think?
Well, I didn't expect Maddison to start, so he's in my fantasy team, so I benched him. So as I said, I'm in Holland at the moment. We were driving across Belgium. I was listening to it in the car. And the lineups came out, and I was like, "Oh my God, Maddison's playing! That's amazing! Oh great! Oh no, he's in my fantasy team." So it was kind of like double edged. But yeah, Ange did kind of intimate slightly on Friday, didn't he? That he was maybe ready to be back, so that was great. I was surprised he went with the same lineup after the Brentford game, playing Royal and then not playing Royal for the United game, i.e. Porro. I thought he would again kind of mix it up a little bit, but he didn't. He went for the same team that started the Man United game. So I think he's starting to kind of, after all the pre-season and players coming in, he's sort of starting to find his sort of more established starting 11. I was just really pleased that we again kind of that philosophy of starting really well and high press and kind of building from the United game. But yeah, in terms of the lineups, I was pleased that it was that Maddison was fit enough to start the game.
Yeah, same. I think he's absolutely integral to our 11. I think he's our best midfielder. Stuart,
yeah,
was it Same for you.
Yeah, I think given how positive the performance was against Man United, I would have been a bit surprised, barring injuries, where we thought Maddison might have been 50-50. My dog's tail's wagging right below. Try and get it to shut up. So I was nicely surprised that there weren't another bunch of changes, because I do think that's been a problem with the managers we've had over the last few years, partly past personnel driven and partly just because they didn't really have a clue who was their best team. So the starting squads were changing all the time, and I think you need a level of consistency in the team to build relationships and partnerships and stuff on the pitch. So that was nice to see, and I think it sort of builds the sort of picture of, I think, what we're going to see tomorrow night against Fulham, which we might talk about later on. But yeah, I was happy with the lineup.
Yeah. Seb, can I ask you a slight curveball? Were you surprised to see, because there were quite a lot of calls on social media, Twitter, that cesspit of people calling for Richarlison to be dropped? Were you a little bit surprised he did start, or just general thoughts on the lineup?
No, I wasn't surprised to see him starting at all. Obviously, Ange said, I think, in the pre-match press conference about 2 games and you're judging him already and stuff like that. No, I mean you're going to kill a guy, I think, if you take him out. And it's Bournemouth. It's not anything that we should be particularly worried about. And that's not saying it after the event. If we've got aspirations of top 4, then going and taking 3 points away at Bournemouth is exactly what you need to do. No, I wasn't surprised by anything in the lineup. I actually took Maddison completely out of my fantasy league team. I didn't even drop him. I didn't even bench him. I took him out completely. But I replaced him with Kulusevski, so happy days. I would, I don't agree particularly with the kind of, an established first 11 or anything like that at the moment. What I would say is, we'll come on to the game and how the season started shortly, but that midfield 3 is going to be a match for anybody. And Bissouma, Sarr and Maddison look unbelievable. As the comment said there, Maddison is just born to play for Spurs, isn't he? He's absolute diamond. So, wasn't surprised with anything that I saw in that starting lineup, really.
Yeah, just to go on to Maddison for a moment, I think he's it's not just how he's playing, it's what he's saying as well. It's just so positive. He just genuinely looks like he's really, really happy to be at Spurs. It's a bit of a contrast. As mate, general thoughts on the lineup at all?
Yeah, I mean, I was pleased to see that it was unchanged. Number one, because like everyone else, I was happy to see Matters was fit. I was a little concerned about Lo Celso having to come into the starting lineup, not having played a competitive game for Spurs in a very long time, and just a guy like that who's had a few hits to his confidence recently. I would have been worried about him, trying to overcompensate maybe for some of the issues in the past at Spurs. But the other thing I was pleased to see was that he didn't bring Emerson back in, and I have nothing against Emerson, but I was happy to see that he's sticking with Porro, because I'd be disappointed if he got to training and preseason with Porro and thought, this isn't exactly the guy that I need for right back. We've spent quite a lot of money on him as far as that position goes and as far as our spending goes. And it would be disappointing to see him not be able to find his way into that sort of inverted role. And I was happy to see him back in the team, and he had a good performance as well. So I was mainly just happy to see those two were back, and nothing else was really up in the air for me.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. So I'll go to you, Becky, first. The first goal. And the thing I noticed was it was all 3 of our midfielders linking up for that goal. It was a great goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, and watching it, like I listened to it on the TalkSport and then watched it back on Match of the Day, and like you said, the kind of movement, the kind of intensity, the press, the fact that we scored fairly early on. It's so refreshing to score first in games. I know we've done it 2 games in a row now because we've had clean sheets, but just the whole kind of the philosophy of the whole kind of get the approach to the game. I said to the person standing next to me in the South Stand at United game, I had no expectations for United. It could have been 4-0 to us. We could have lost 4-0, could have drawn 4-0, because I'm trying to listen to what Ange is saying and kind of say that, there may be bumps in the road and we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. But, we made United look really poor and turned to kind of, like you said, it is inverted commas just Bournemouth. But often when we've played well against a so-called better team, the following match, which has tended to be an early kickoff on a Saturday, we've not turned up. And to sort of carry on from the United game, playing really well, like people are putting in the chat about everybody looks really happy to be there. Everybody looks really confident. Unfortunately, the only person who doesn't seem to have a confidence is Richarlison. And I agree with people putting in the comments that, like people wrote off Vicario after one game, we have got to stick by Richarlison. He's saying about how it's going well in training and he's scoring goals in training. And, the whole kind of link up with Son takes time because, Son and Kane were kind of intuitive last year and the seasons before, and that's going to take time with Richarlison. So it was great to see us just kind of kick on. And I think, the way kind of Udogie presses and obviously the way Bissouma plays now. And, John's just saying there about how, Maddison wasn't signed, but, Bissouma was basically kind of locked away in a cupboard. He's back and he's thriving. And the touch, the forward pass from Sarr to Maddison and the way Maddison just kind of clipped it past the keeper. I love the way that he kind of interacts with us, both in the ground and on socials. I think he's hilarious. I was talking to some of my friends today on WhatsApp about how I think we defended Kane so much because he used to get so much hate that he's almost like a robot in kind of his sort of responses on social media, whereas Maddison is like, bring it on, and he sort of responds to things. He's kind of privately messaging them and sharing it with us about, bigging up with Richarlison. Sarr's always tweeting and they're all sort of sharing the confidence with each other. And that's just really, really clear. And to see kind of the Bissouma, Udogie, Sarr, Maddison kind of connection, and then the way they all came together and celebrated with throwing of the darts, and the claps are back and the high five scoring thing that used to do with Delhi, that's all back. And that's why we keep singing we've got our Tottenham back, because that's what it feels like. All the things that we love and we embrace and are part of us that we enjoy about being Tottenham fans, he's kind of back. And Ange is at the top of that tree, and he just has so much credit and respect for that like I said, we're trying not to get ahead of ourselves, but it's so great to enjoy watching Spurs games and look forward to watching Spurs games. And I agree with people in the comments. It's like Maddison's been here forever and it hasn't. And we've got Bentancur to come back as well, and it's just so positive.
Yeah, I'd agree. We have a top club. I think we have one of the best midfields in the league now. I'll go to you, Stuart, next. Richarlison had, he ran for on goal. And his touch almost looked like someone who is struggling for confidence. Do you agree? What did you make of that?
I think, I know there was a few people, especially like in the commentary team on TNT Sport, who were talking about if that was Harry Kane, he would have hit it first time and he would have gone near post and scored a goal and all that stuff, and that's very easy to say. But I think he is definitely someone who's playing below his full confidence, and I think that the only way to get through that is to keep playing and ultimately score goals. And I think him just getting immediately dropped or yanked out of the team, I think, would batter him. So I think I agree with Ange. I think it's way too early to have him dropped or sort of cast out of the team. He does offer certain strengths in terms of holding the ball up, and I think I was chatting about this in the group over the weekend, that we're not utilising him aerially as much as I think we could do as well, because I think he's very strong in the air, and a lot of our sort of play into the box at the moment, apart from corners and set pieces, is all on the ground. So I think there is a part of his game that we're probably not utilising as much as we probably could. But I just want to see him score, and hopefully Ange starts him tomorrow and he bangs in a goal or two, because that's the only thing that's going to get his confidence up. Because we know he's a good player and he can add something to the team, and we need to back him at the moment. Like Becky said, you can't just sort of slate him this early in the season. It's just way too soon, and he's taken on a hell of a mantle as well, replacing Kane. That's his other challenge as well.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, his two most famous goals almost for us, they were both headed efforts from set pieces. Or maybe one of them wasn't. But, they were both headers. Then, second half, Bournemouth looked a little bit better. But then, was it 59th, 60th minute, Ange made two subs. He brought on Hojbjerg and Davies. And then we score a few minutes later. I'll go to you, Seb. That kind of willingness to make proactive substitutions changed the game and killed their momentum, didn't it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a direct link. If I'm brutally honest, I think the timing of the goals in both halves was important because I think Bournemouth came out to play to begin with in the first half, and we scored after 17 minutes, and then I was going to correct you there as well, and then the second half they actually came out, really played, had a chance with Sessegnon, who I thought was very bright for Bournemouth. Looks like, but 18 minutes in, again to the second half, we scored and managed the game from that on really, really well. If I could just go back to a few things that you've been talking, I know we're kind of going around the room just to kind of cover what Becky was saying. I've actually literally just done the podcast. We do a podcast as well, by the way, people who didn't know. And what I mentioned at the back end of last season, so before we'd hired Postecoglou, before we'd hired, obviously signed Maddison and others, was that more than anything, we were weighing up how important it is to obviously win, but also how important it is to enjoy football. And it got to the end of the season last season, and between the guys that do the pod, being honest, there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm to do them towards the end of the season. We were going round, we were talking about the same old things, the same dire football, the same tactical analysis where there's not a lot to dissect because there was only one way of playing, there's only one formation, it was the same players every week. There was nothing really to kind of get excited about or anything to kind of look forward to. And let's be honest, we were in a pretty bad place as a club. And one thing that I said was, if you went back to the Pochettino era, we were everybody's second team. Everyone loved us. The Sky pundits, who really, are terrible, I think, and they're biased. However, at the time when we were flying, we were that you couldn't knock us. We had Dele coming through, and he was the nation's favourite pin-up boy. Got Harry Kane coming through. He had fantastic football, like Becky said. This goal celebration, Dele with his eye, and the hand claps and all that, and everyone loved us. And the last 2, 3, 4 years, we've been the club to jump on. Whether it's Daniel Levy, whether it's the managerial appointments, the boring football, Jose, Conte, we're in a really, really bad place. To have turned that around within 3 weeks of the season starting, to be, it's not just Tottenham social media, it's social media completely. For Maddison to be the English pin-up boy now. Kane has gone. There needs to be someone else that comes through. I've said it all the way along. I like Jack Grealish. I like the way he plays football. I like the smile on his face. These players are getting paid a hell of a lot of money to go and kick a ball around. At least do it smiling. Maddison has got that. And then the Postecoglou chant that Robbie Williams has taken up, the comment that Ange made on TNT Sports in his post-match interview, is getting replayed around the world. We're now the fun team. We're playing good football. We might not win every week, but we're entertaining. People want to come and see us. This is to turn that around within 3 weeks it's massive, and it's not an easy job. It's not magic. It's not we've got a new guy. It's not new manager bounce. The ethos has completely changed within the club. I'm so glad the Man United game. I think could have gone either way. So to kind of get that result was massive. But I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's not necessarily making your own luck. That's not quite what I mean. But positivity and doing things to win and not to not lose sometimes gets you the wins that maybe, not saying you don't deserve, but it gets you over the line. And everything within the club at the moment, whether it's on the pitch, off the pitch, social media, whatever, it's positive, and that can take you a very, very long way.
The thing I like about Ange as well is he kind of implies that he doesn't pay attention to all of that background noise, and he wants to be the underdog, and he likes kind of going under the radar. But then, like, obviously I've seen that when he says, yeah, I'm just copying Pep, shows that he does actually pay attention to it, but he uses it in the right way. And I would imagine he's given that philosophy to the players as well, to say, you only get one chance at this, enjoy it. Like you just said, Seb, I completely agree. You get paid a lot of money. Obviously, you know, we've got kids. Jack would love to be a footballer, and I keep saying, "Oh, Jack, okay, you want to be a footballer, right? Okay, yeah, if you're going to do it, and you're going to do something that so few people get an opportunity to do, enjoy it." And he's brought that back to us. You know, we spend a lot of money and a lot of time, even if we don't go to the ground. We are spending our time invested in Tottenham, and we want to do it, enjoying it with a smile on our face. Because I've also said this a lot. We get bantered so much. Seb's so right there that we became the banter club, and the constant thing about being the Harry Kane team and the team in inverted commas that never has any trophies. And we have to cope with all of that. And for the brief time that we were top on Saturday, I was walking around the campsite, me and Jack, both of us Spurs tops on. I didn't care, because we're also, there's a lot of German people here as well. I thought we're going to bang into someone in a Bayern shirt with Kane on the back. So we were really kind of embracing it. And, you know, we have to, because it's been such a long time. We've been so starved of that, like I said a minute ago, I think Ange is just there. And like we said, everyone keeps saying we can't believe. We're trying not to get too carried away, trying to take each game as it comes. But it really feels like there is something to kind of get behind. And it's just so much more fun. And we aren't going to win every game. And we're going to get players injured and things are going to unravel. But I don't feel that we're going to have this sort of depressive sort of, you know, not taking any responsibility kind of action. I think Ange is going to say, this is what happened and this is what we'll do about it. And there we'll go from there. And you think, yeah, fair dues, because that's not what Conte did and Mourinho. It was never their responsibility, and that was so draining towards the end. So draining.
I would also like to point out that Bayern Munich, after 2 games, are not top of the league. Their city rivals, Union Berlin, one of their rivals, are top of the league. So have fun with that, Harry. Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, me especially, and I'll ask Sarr if he feels the same. But towards the end of last season, I thought to myself, do I have to watch this? I don't really want to. It's just going to really either annoy me or make me feel terrible. I just don't want to. And I had to go watch it with my mate as like emotional support, because I just couldn't keep doing it. It's like, I don't know, it was painful. But yeah, like Isaiah, so here's a fun stat for you. We scored 6 goals this season. We have scored as many own goals as our front line has scored. Do you think Kulusevski getting a goal, you know, that's going to really kickstart his season?
Well, I certainly hope so. Outside of the goal, you know, he didn't play exceptionally well. He wasn't bad. It wasn't like there was constant turnovers or whatever. It was just sort of the ball would come into him. You know, he would sort of look at going down the line. He's still not confident going down to the line on his right foot all of the time. If he has a defender, with him, he wants to take them on and go to his left. And he's still working on that. I hope that sort of getting the goal will give him that little bit of confidence that he needs the next time he's squared up with a fullback or any defender in a wide position, to kind of do more of what Ange wants from him and get to the end line and cut it back on his right foot. Because the time that he's done that, he created the goal for Sarr, but it was because there was no defender there. He was played into the space. Of course he was going to take it. When there is a defender there, he's a little bit hesitant. So I hope it means something to the whole front line, and because none of the 3 of them have been all that impressive. Son has been, I thought, looking a bit sharper, and he's done really well in combinations with Maddison and Udogie, in my opinion. But going forward and kind of in and around the penalty area, all 3 of them have looked a little bit more hesitant than I'd want them to be, playing the type of football that we're playing, in the system that we're playing. And so if it would just take, you know, the first goal or 2 for each of those players to kind of get on top of their confidence, start taking defenders on 1v1, and really creating chances on the back of their own skill, because we're creating a lot of chances just sort of on this system, and with James Maddison and Bissouma in midfield and Sarr, we're creating a lot of chances that way with the quality of players behind the front three. If they can add creating and scoring just on the back of their own ability and their own talent, that's going to really take our ability to dominate games, dominate teams, pin teams back to a whole nother level. And yeah, I mean, it would be fantastic if it's going to just take the first goal or two, assist or two from each of those players to get there. But I'm skeptical about how quickly that's going to happen, and if it's going to happen with this existing front three, or if we're going to need to see Perisic coming in for any one of them, Solomon coming in for any one of them. No, it's hard to say, but in some way we're going to have to get a front three that are creating chances on their own, as well as receiving chances from the midfield and the fullbacks.
We had a discussion on the pod actually about Perisic, because I said I feel like he is your archetypal Ange Postecoglou wide player. What he does is what Ange wants from you want someone to hug the line, and you want crosses to come in. Now, ironically, the person who you want on the end of those crosses is Richarlison, with his aerial abilities we've spoken about. But the issue that I see is that I thought we looked better when Richarlison came off, with Son in the middle, and Perisic has linked up already. He was the really Udogie did so well for that second goal, but Perisic's movement and link-up play with Udogie on that occasion, and obviously we saw the link-up with Ben Davies, even though it was an own goal, very similar against Man United. Perisic is the one that I think could come in. It's a question about who you take out, but it's a positive. There's options. I would disagree slightly that I don't think Son necessarily needs a goal, or that a goal is going to kickstart Kulusevski's season or whatever, because that's not essentially what they're. Even though you can score goals, I don't feel like that's the pressure's being put on them. Richarlison is obviously a different matter, and he's playing to me with it looks like a lot of stress. There's a lot of Soldado-esque about him. I said on the pod, Richarlison's doing everything that we would do if we played for Spurs. We would put in tons of effort. We'd run around. We would do everything we can, but technical-wise, we wouldn't offer a lot. And I don't think Richarlison is offering a lot in that technical aspect. Now, you can say he's unlucky. The one where he kind of came through and the ball bounced off the defender's hand, I think, and kind of moved away from him as he went to strike. There's a header at the back post that maybe he could have done a little bit better with. But the problem with him is he's so emotional. You see that when he scores, whips off his top and everything else. It doesn't take a lot to kind of break the fragile confidence that he has. Now, hopefully, you say on the flip side of that, if he does score, scores a goal, that the confidence, will be limitless and he'll go on and on. But for me, he's just a little bit fragile, trying a little bit too hard to do things that he's not able to do. And maybe we'll come on to this when we talk about transfers. But I think we need another striker.
I think Rishi's body language in the game was just so telling. Like, very, very quickly on, he was sort of shoulders were dropped and he was just sort of sloping about, almost sort of sulking a little bit. And I think when he went on that little run and then basically just sort of fell over the ball, I think that was it. It was sort of very quickly after that moment that the substitution came as well. And I think he is just playing with like a guy who's got. Wrongly, I think he's playing like someone who's got the world on his shoulders, and I think we've all talked about like how the team is sort of playing like they're playing in a happy way. They're sort of playing in a sort of almost like relaxed way, and I think Rishi is the only one who's not in that sort of place at the moment. And I think Seb's right; his temperament and his mentality is a bit of a issue at the moment, and it's just going to be whether Ange has got the time. I think he is one of those people. I think will give him patience and time, but I think it's just will it work going forward if the performances don't improve, because it has been quite telling that every time that he's sort of come off the pitch, we have looked a little bit more improved in that area. So yeah, he might not have a whole lot of time. So
yeah, for me, it's rather telling that our main goal threat seems to come from deep runs from our midfielders. Like you look at Sarr's goal against United, Maddison's goal the weekend. They're deep runs from midfield players. It's not from our front three. That almost doesn't seem where the main threat is. Which, on the flip side, means if we can get a front three.
You do have to look at the runs that the front three are making, particularly Richarlison. As much as I'm critical of some of the technical aspects and the fact I don't know we're playing to his strengths, a lot of the work that he does is leading to the goals and the creation. I'm trying to think now, because I'm trying to think back. There was one goal in particular. I think it must have been United. It must have been the first goal where Sarr does score. If I remember rightly, it was Richarlison who made that first run, and a good run, to their goalkeeper, I think, and they tried to play out, and we won the ball. The ball goes out to Kulusevski, who's free. Because Richarlison had made the run to the goalkeeper, their left back had then had to come in to kind of help, and that left Kulusevski wide. So you have to look at all aspects, not just who's scoring the goals. But like I said right at the start, he is the one that does need a goal. We can't keep saying he's making the runs, he's playing okay, he's helping others. He needs to score.
Yeah, I think he's obviously getting in his own head a bit with it, which is natural. He's obviously someone who wants to do well, and he feels like he's got to step up a lot. Yeah. And he leads the line for Brazil. He's not a bad player.
And it matters to him. At least he's not coming off like Ndombele. We have to take positive out of that. He wants to do well. He wants to play for Spurs. He wants to repay some of that big transfer fee. So, although obviously he also wants to play for Rome, but we'll forget about that.
Yeah, I'd agree. Good. Yeah, as I do you think it is just a case maybe he's trying too hard, overthinking?
I mean, it does. I don't know him personally, but it does seem to fit his general profile that would be something he might struggle with. He talks a lot more than Harry Kane did about, or than most players do, really, about exactly how he's sort of feeling in the situation that he's been in. Basically, this continuous situation he's been in since joining Spurs, where he's not really playing how he wants to play and as well as he would like to be playing. And he spoke about, he kind of spoke publicly about Conte dropping him after he played well. And he's spoken about wanting, like you guys said, he's spoken about wanting to repay that fee. It does seem like he kind of personalizes everything, which isn't uncommon, but it would make sense to me that he might just be overthinking things when he does get into those goal scoring positions, or when he does receive the ball in a threatening area and he knows I should be trying to take on a defender. I can see just a lot of things going through his head about how he's supposed to play, how he's supposed to be beating this defender. That's kind of his thing, is that, maybe the first touch isn't great, but once he's actually on the ball, he can spark things, he can do things, he's a powerful runner. I need to show that or I'm going to get dropped out of the team. And he's probably got a bit of that feeling from being so frequently dropped and left out of the team and brought on in the 86th minute by Conte. And I'm sure that's all sort of building up for him. And at the same time, to comment on the things he's doing besides scoring, if you look at Maddison's goal for Bournemouth, Maddison is coming from a slightly deeper position, and it's Richarlison who, instead of making the through run into the space Maddison's heading for, he drops off of the run he's making and comes short to potentially receive the ball from Sarr, which is what pulls the defender that was on him out of the space that Sarr passes the ball through. So he is clearly understanding how to play in this system. I don't think he's struggling to adjust from defensive football that he's played at Everton and at Spurs to Postecoglou's system. I think it's comfortable for him because he plays for Brazil. I really just think everything else seems to be going okay. He actually had some really good hold-up moments against Bournemouth, which I hadn't felt like we'd seen in the first couple of games. But it's in those positions where he knows, okay, this is the main thing that people expect from me: goals, dribbles, powerful running. That's the moment where he's like, man, I've really got to get this right. I've really got to get this right. I'm going to get dropped out of the team. You know, fans are going to turn, whatever it is that his biggest concern is. I'm not going to repay, you know, how much money this club spent on me, whatever it is. I think it's just those moments, because I am seeing him improve in his off the ball movement, some of his touches, his passing decisions. It just does seem like a bit of a mental block.
The other thing as well is this is probably the longest run of matches he's had while he's been a Spurs player, because he was always a bit part player, wasn't he? He was coming on the bench and that sort of stuff. So there's that side of it as well. I just noticed that he's getting the ironic cheers, isn't he, from the opposition as well, crowd. That's not going to help either. But yeah, he's not had a run of games with us, which is why we need to keep the faith, don't we?
Yeah. I almost wonder if maybe against Fulham, it's worth, you know, giving him a break, just take him out the firing line for 90 minutes.
No.
I wonder, just because Postecoglou's already said that he's going to be making some changes, that if it would sort of be a time where he comes out of the lineup where it doesn't feel like he's been dropped, and then you give him another way to approach the game. You bring him in at that, regardless of the score, you bring him in around that 60-minute mark and see if approaching the game, getting up against some tired defenders. I mean, they may rotate as well. They might rotate a bit on the back line. You might have some defenders who haven't played much this season. He might get an extra step on them, and that might be the moment that he needs, or the moment or two that he needs. And it would be something to consider, because Postecoglou is sort of, not intentionally, but he's sort of kind of given Richarlison an excuse to not be in the team by saying, yeah, well, we've just played and then we have another game and our system takes a lot out of the players. So, you know, maybe that would give them the excuse to let him approach the game from a different position.
Well, the interesting thing is going to be that if he ends up starting with likes of Perisic on the left and Solomon on the right, these are the guys that could absolutely serve Richarlison really well in that game. So I really hope he does start in that game and gets another opportunity.
I think he'll start. Came off. There's no reason not to start him. He only played 60 minutes on Saturday, so I think he'll start. And I think might see Son come out, maybe Kulusevski come out. And I think you're right, Stuart, that Solomon and Perisic are the type of players who can supply. Is obviously for him to take up one of the wider positions. It doesn't have to be the striker. We've seen obviously Son play that role before, and we potentially got other options there. I said it on the podcast. I've seen we've been linked with Johnson, and that looks quite strong. I'm quite happy with that. I know a lot of people aren't, but I am. I want us to go after Gift Orban. That's the player that I want. And he's young. You can tell me anything you like, and I'll say to you 50 goals in 50 games across two separate countries is Haaland-esque. And he will end up going to Borussia Dortmund or similar if we don't get him. He'll be exactly the same. It'll be 30 million quid for him. It'll be worth 100 million in 2 years' time, and everyone will want him. We need to get him in.
Yeah,
whatever. 30 million's not. That's the going rate for a Haaland as was, or an Adeyemi, or someone like that who's tearing it up in lower league or lower standard league football. But if you've not watched him, anyone watching this, you need to do the stereotypical YouTube thing and go and check him out and tell me that he's not like Jermaine Defoe, because he is. He's not Haaland. He's not big and strong. He's just a whippet, and he can shoot both feet. And that's someone. If you're Richarlison, the other thing that we have to consider is he's got, does it affect a player if you think, well, there's no one really who can come in for me? If you were to drop Richarlison, you're dropping him for Son. There's no other option. Dane Scarlett, I can't see. He's not been in the matchday squad. This Veliz that we've had not been in the matchday squad. You need someone to alternate. You need that as a club anyway, so that you have options. And I know Johnson has played as a striker, but I don't think that's why we're looking at him. Lukaku's gone as well. I know people were thinking we might get Lukaku. He's gone to Roma. So let's see.
I think,
sorry, James. I've probably gone completely off topic for you there. Sorry, mate.
No. It's good. It's good.
Just to sort of stay on that quickly, I do think the reason that we're looking at Johnson at the moment is, I think, because we're so messed up in terms of the squad breakup, in terms of homegrown and international players, that I think Johnson does come under the homegrown sort of banner. So I think that could end up being the reason why he's now become a bit more of a priority than Orban, which is, I agree with you, Seb. I think we should be getting him because I think we're going to miss a trick. But I think that's the problem that we've talked about this so much. I've spoken about it a lot on the podcast, since I've been involved recently, that the squad structure is in such a mess that we're going to just have to muddle through this window. And that was always my thought. I never thought that this window at Ange was going to be perfect, because it was just tidying up the mess of the last 4-5 years. It was more going to be potentially January and then next summer, where he could have much more sort of shape over particular players and all that kind of stuff, because he'd have the options to do it. I think it depends on who we get rid of. Yeah, we could still go back in for Orban or something like that, but I just think that's probably why Johnson seems to be getting sort of talked about a bit more at the moment, because he's a homegrown player. That's pretty much it, I think.
I think
sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think with Brennan Johnson, I think it might be a Davies kind of situation where the league considers him homegrown, but the FA don't, or something, but it still counts towards one of the quotas. It might not be the case because he did play for England.
He's non-homegrown for Europe, which doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
He'll be both. The difference with Davies was obviously he spent his youth in Swansea, which is classed as Wales. Even though Johnson is Welsh, that's not where he spent his youth. I think Johnson. I've seen a lot saying like, "Why are we going after him?" It would be another Richarlison, which is not great towards Richarlison as well. 22, I think, fastest player in the league. I think he came up last season. Hugs the touchline when asked to. 11 goals and assists, or mix of goals and assists in a struggling Nottingham Forest team last season. If you watched him against United, he is rapid. That's what we haven't got. We've got pace, don't get me wrong, but he is rapid. So I have no problem with that signing.
We need more players who are going to attack the defence, because I think that's where we're coming unstuck a little bit at the moment, because Son and both Son and Kulusevski are sort of struggling to have I don't know why, they're struggling to have the confidence to properly take on players, like properly attack them, go towards the box, drawing out fouls and all that kind of stuff. Whereas I think people like Johnson and Solomon, who we're still yet to sort of properly see, they both seem really, really sort of comfortable taking on players. And I think that's what we're lacking in terms of what Ange is sort of really, really looking for. I think we're doing okay at the moment, but I think Ange just wants options. And I think that's a great thing about the way he manages the squad as well, is that he doesn't sort of make people feel like they're sort of subpar like Conte and Mourinho did. He will utilise the whole team at different times. So I think getting Johnson in, unfortunately, you're always going to have the premium for Premier League English players. We can't get around that. That's just what the market is. But I'll be happy with it. For me, I'm with Seb on that.
I just want to bring up this comment, and unfortunately, I'm taking Davo's bait where he tries to wind me up. Side note: Brennan Johnson doesn't start for Wales because Rob Page is incompetent. Every time he comes on for Wales as a sub, he's always exceptional, I have to say. and how Dan loses the ball after 2 touches. James get started ahead of him. I don't have any clue. But I was just going to ask you, Becky, what do you think about Brennan Johnson?
I know that he's got Son in the end of his name, and someone tweeted earlier that we only sign up forward players with Son in their name, and I thought that was quite funny. I listened to everybody there. You know me, I know nothing about anybody until they sign, and then I learn a little bit about them. I agree with the gift Orban thing. It just seems really silly that we supposedly got the 100 million from Kane and we can't sign a player. That if we're signing players for the future, with the vast majority of our squad now, we've gone from being something like, isn't it, the third oldest team to now the third youngest or something similar to that, is that we're obviously buying players for the future. And I agree with what you just said then about how, it may take a few windows because we've got so many players that have got these kind of the homegrown element or the over 21 or whatever. Is that he would be somebody gift Orban for the future, and we aren't doing it. I think Paul O'Keefe has tweeted tonight to say that it's very unlikely it's going to take place now. So in terms of Brennan Johnson, I've heard that he's Welsh, and I've heard that he plays for Nottingham Forest, and that's about it. But yeah, if he's somebody that we can kind of use as a utility player over on the front, I think I said on Holly's show earlier tonight, I think we're still short a centre back and a forward player. I think, at the moment, everything's positive because no one's injured and no one's suspended and no one's off at the African Nations Cup and all that sort of stuff. So once one of those things happens, we're then a bit thin on the ground in terms of forward play and certainly at the back. I think, the rumours this week about whether Sanchez or Dier leave, we've got to get somebody in to replace them, because otherwise, as soon as Romero's suspended or something, we're in a situation again. So I think that's what needs kind of to happen. I think, I said, we seem to have a squad now that all kind of buys into a team sort of ethos that, they psych off. Porro tweeted, I think, earlier in the week to say, I'll play wherever I'm told to. So they're all really sort of going with this idea that, he could play right wing and he could play right back. They're all being kind of given this idea that, we've got inverted wing backs and this sort of thing, and full backs, is that they'll do what they're told because they're so keen to play now. All the players have come out and said, it's fun, I'm enjoying myself, I'm not kind of having to run 80 yards to get the ball back and all this sort of stuff. And that's really great, but I still think we are a couple of players short. But yeah, in answer to your question, I think he gets that kind of English Welsh kind of tax added on top of him. I'm not sure he's the value that he's been kind of quoted at, bearing in mind what we paid for Maddison and what we paid for Bissouma and people like that. I think we don't tend to really pay for anybody over sort of 40 million, except for Richarlison. He's that kind of, he was a Prem-based player and we paid 60 million for him. So I think that kind of comes into it as well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens the next kind of 4 days, really.
Yeah,
he's got a 4-year contract, Johnson, and he's their best player. I'm sorry, you got to pay over 40 million.
That makes sense. That makes sense, 100%.
My personal view on him, I'm talking purely as a Welsh football fan, is I think he's Wales' best player, and I think he has the highest ceiling in that entire squad. I'm going to go to you, Comrade Isaiah. What do you think about Brennan as potential signing?
I feel like he's just because of where he plays and sort of how he's used at Nottingham. I think he's underestimated by Spurs fans ahead of this potential signing, because I don't know that he's the ready-made product in terms of goal threat that he will be in 3 years, but just in terms of his technical ability and his, for lack of a better term, God-given physical attributes of just being absolutely rapid. And he isn't just that one-dimensional. Someone mentioned Adama earlier, Adama Traore. He isn't just that one-dimensional. That's pretty much all Adama Traore has. Every 10 crosses is decent, but other than that, he's just strength and pace. And it's one of the reasons that he, has found himself out of the Premier League and or not out of the Premier League, but not being able to stay around Wolves' team or Barcelona's team. He's just so one-dimensional, and I don't think that Brennan Johnson is the same way at all. I think he's very versatile. He can play across the front line. I think he he could even, if in a wing back system, he could play wing back. I mean, I think he's just one of those players who has the technical ability and physical attributes to really help you across most positions on the pitch. I mean, in most systems. And I think even if he's here in 7 years and we have a different manager, I think he'll be useful in whatever system that is. I think at £45 million, it's a no-brainer, even at 50 million for me, because the way players are priced now after one decent season, you don't tend to get anyone good for much less than that. You can, but not often.
They have to have expiring contracts. That's the only way that you can do it.
Absolutely, or be not homegrown for sure. I mean, the homegrown tax is hardly even being applied. If a guy with 4 years on his deal is 50 million, I would say, I mean, that for me would be a great deal, because I think he provides cover across the front line. He can play in any of those positions, and he is good enough to push the way they're all playing, any of those three players for their position now, and especially in 3 years' time when he's coming to 25, 26 years old. I mean, I think he'll be fantastic, and I think we'll be disappointed if we didn't sign him, if we haven't signed him.
Yeah. And I think they've got a Langer now, haven't they, Forest? So they've almost got a ready-made replacement there.
Yeah.
If they do end up selling him.
They're also in talks to sign a Dominguez from Bologna. So I think it's all looking to the fact that they are maybe expecting him to go. The other thing that I would say is that really gets on my nerves from people on social media is the price apparently is 50 million. They won't entertain anything under that. People who say just pay it. I mean, look, I run a business, obviously nothing the size of Tottenham Hotspur, but you don't just pay it. You don't just 50 million. There you go. You chance your arm a little bit. It really winds me up. We've gone in at 43 million. I did hear today that Dier has been offered as part of the thing, which I think makes sense. I saw them, the two Waddle and Willy Bolly, or as my sons like to call him, Billy Wally. So they need a centre back, I would say. I can see something happening there. I think we all thought Spence might be part of it, but apparently he's off to Leeds. So I think there will be quite a bit of movement. I'm expecting, Ange talked about it today, and Dembele, apparently PSG have come back into the chat for him. Reguilon has been mentioned. I wish my dream would be to run a football club. But I think we'll see quite a few leave, and I think one or two will come in.
Yeah, I think it's going to be crazy. I think deadline day is going to be absolutely bonkers this year. It's been a bit boring the last couple of years, so I think it's going to go absolutely nuts. Because we're not the only team in that situation. There's so many teams that are desperate to shift and make little changes and stuff like that. So I think the deadline day show that we're going to do on Friday is going to be very entertaining.
I think quite a few injuries as well. That's the other thing. There's been some injuries where players are out for 5, 6, 7 months, even longer than that. Whether it's Tomiyasu at Arsenal or Luke Shaw or some kind of key injuries where people are looking to fill gaps. I saw Reguilon linked with Man United today. I don't think that will happen, but that gives you an idea of just little, maybe even loan moves and stuff like that. We have an excess squad. The Athletic, actually, I don't know if you saw, did a really good article on players that aren't getting a look in at their clubs, but why they wouldn't want to move, and it boils down to money. I've said this all the time about Ndombele. We literally handed a 23-year-old 100 million quid and expected him to be a world beater. 2 years before, he's playing in the French 4th division, and then you're giving him 100, literally 200 grand a week on a 6-year deal, with signing on fees and everything else. 100 million quid. There you go, and expect him to light it up. Some players can. Yeah, some players are. Some players always will be. They think of where they come from and they want more and more and more. And some players just go, thank you very much. Never need to do a day's work again.
what other job could you do where you get paid that amount of money at that young an age, and you can go, well, I'm sorted. I don't really care. I like living in London and getting paid loads of money to not do very much. I'm going to go off and have a few beverages. Fair enough.
He's managed to win a title at Napoli along the way as well, though.
Right?
Unbelievable.
Get some decent loans. I think the other thing to think about of any fee this window, especially, is Nottingham Forest are sat there thinking he's our best player. He's on a long-term contract, and the big thing is they know we've just been given 100+ million for Harry Kane. So they're like, well, we know you can afford 50 million. If maybe. I think they'd still be demanding something similar had we not, but they're thinking, well, they've got loads of money to spend. They need to sign an attacking player. We don't need to sell. So, cough up. How much can we get out of them? Because I'm sure they know negotiating with Daniel Levy is going to be about as much fun as a colonoscopy. So, fair play to him, right? There's also been links coming out in previous days about Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg. Apparently, United are interested.
Can't allow that to happen. That's a ridiculous thing to do because I don't know what Becky thinks, but we shouldn't be strengthening them in midfield when they're struggling in midfield. That just seems absolutely insane because that's where we beat them when we played United was through their weaker midfield. So I don't know why we'd be doing that. I'll be staggered if that happened.
Yeah, what fee, Becky, do you think would be acceptable for Hojbjerg to go?
I think the fact that he's kind of brought him on in the United game and the Bournemouth game suggests that Ange still feels he has some kind of worth in our team. So, like I said, I didn't see the whole game on Saturday, but I listened to it and then reading bits about afterwards saying that, when Perisic and Hojbjerg came on, Bournemouth were having their best spell and that kind of experience sort of settled everything. And then we kicked on and got the second goal, which kind of killed them off. And I think, it's great having all these young players, but we also need that kind of experience as well. And I just don't think Levy sells to rivals. He why would he sell someone to United? Or it could be a loan, I get. But if we just said then about players liking the fees they're on and like living in London, why would he go there? Man United only ever get mentioned because they're not Chelsea, but they're the next club that's got money. That's why they mention it, isn't it? Otherwise, they didn't mention because there are other clubs who wouldn't be able to afford him. So I'm not sure Ange is done with him yet.
No,
why is Kane at Bayern Munich? Kane's at Bayern Munich to stop him going to Manchester United. Levy will not deal with Manchester United. This is one of the silliest rumours I've heard. Look, I might be proved wrong. I might look stupid, but you're right. And two things. I can't see him coming on. I can't see him moving to another Premier League team. And also, he's done well. When he came on against Bournemouth, I thought he was really good. And no one's really talked about it. He put such a nice ball in. Literally a couple of minutes left. And I think it was to Son, who just didn't quite get it under control. But it was one of those, he's done it before. He did it a few times last season. Lovely little kind of dink chip ball over the top, dissects the defence. And unfortunately, we didn't make the most of it. But Becky's right. Perisic, Hojbjerg, they've still got a lot to offer. And you need to keep some experience around the squad. Look, questions will be asked, I think.
Coming up, right? Because we're going to leave Bissouma and Sarr. We're going to lose Bissouma and Sarr for the African nations. So unless we've got a replacement coming in, people like Hojbjerg are going to be like gold dust, I think.
Did you see the comments that Postecoglou made? And I thought it was quite interesting because he kind of gave an answer without giving an answer. I think he was talking specifically about Hojbjerg. And he said that you can't expect him, Postecoglou, to come in and just change it through luck. You need to change the personnel. You can't keep. It's effectively saying you can't keep doing the same things and expect a different outcome. So Hojbjerg, I think, has been kind of one of the fall guys of that. Because I actually didn't think he played badly last season. He was almost ever present, but he's been asked to play a negative brand of football, just essentially recycle the ball sideways and get it to the, eventually get it to the front end. I think Stuart's right. I think he'll have more if we keep him, and I'd like to keep him. He'll have more of a a role to play as the season goes on. Once he learns or he gets the negative traits, if you like, that we've all barracked him for out of his game. And also the other thing is the midfield three that we've got that started the season have been, I mean, they look like to me like the best in the league. They'll give anyone a game.
Yeah, and that's been the thing is that like I can see Hojbjerg starting tomorrow against Fulham as well, because I think it's just to give the rest of the players a little bit of a rest. I think if we struggle, he'll bring on likes of Bissouma and Maddison, but I think this is the opportunity for, like we saw a lot in pre-season, where in the first half of a lot of our pre-season games, it was our first 11 who seemed to struggle a little bit, and it was the sort of secondary team who would come on and actually do pretty well. And I think hopefully this is a good opportunity for people like Lascelles, Hojbjerg, maybe even Skipp. I don't know if he'll go wholesale all three. I don't know, to impress, because we are going to need it. If we want to sort of challenge on multiple fronts on the domestic front, which we should bloody be doing, then we're going to need everyone. And like I say, I think unless we've got some kind of replacement lined up, that's quite a big drop, to take sort of Hojbjerg out the team, because I don't know. We haven't been linked with a midfielder for quite a while now. So if there's something going on totally in the background, which if Perisic is involved, in his consultant role, you never know, because you never know what he'll pull out of the bag. But I'd like to keep him because, like Becky said, I know she was sort of listening to it while travelling, but they definitely, Perisic and Hojbjerg definitely managed to calm the game, because there was a point where Bournemouth were becoming quite dominant, and very soon after those two guys came on, that calmed the whole situation down. So they do have a role to play for sure.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. So it's all interesting speculation, especially about the fact that the window is soon. It's weird in my head, the window being so early on, because I'm used to it being, at the end of August. Oh, wait, no, it is at the end of August. How's that happened? I thought it was early August. Okay,
You've had too many beers again. You've lost time.
No, I've had one. I've just time's flown, I suppose, when you have nothing to do. Anyway, let's look ahead to tomorrow's match. I'm quite happy about that. It's nice to have Ange ball back so quickly. So I'll throw it around to everybody. I'll go to you first, Becky. What do you think? How many changes do you think Ange might make, and what sort of players would you like to come in to start against Fulham?
Well, just reading the comments, some people are saying about Solomon. It would be nice for Solomon to come in against his previous club. I think that would be nice. I said before, I don't know. I think I saw someone put in the comment as well about Perisic. Perisic's role now is experience for the younger players like Udogie and Porro. He's probably not got the engine to play consecutive games, full 90 minutes. So he may start and then come off, or come on later in. Like you said, different kind of comments about whether he brings Skipp back in for Sarr, whether we see Sanchez instead of Romero. Romero didn't tend to play many cup games last year. So whether he does that, I don't know. I like the fact he's come out today and said that we are making changes, but we still want to win it. And that's just so refreshing finally to hear that we all want to win, a cup, and we want to have a good run in tournaments. Those of us that were there at Sheffield United last year, that, it was a dark, dark day. We want us to go and give teams respect that they deserve. And that's, it's a midweek game. It's a London derby. It's away at Fulham. It's not going to be as straightforward as maybe some people think. It's probably, aside from Chelsea, the second hardest draw that we could have been given in the South Group. I think we need to give it the respect it deserves, but I'm hopeful that, we can win and kind of go deep in that and the FA Cup. But yeah, I think it's weird because we aren't going to see weekend, midweek fixtures much this year. So it's not going to happen too often anyway, because we've not been in Europe. But yeah, I hope that we give it the respect it deserves. But apparently there's no extra time either. It goes straight to penalties, apparently.
Yeah, it's 90
so
minutes.
I'm hoping we get it done before then.
No penalties. Don't want penalties.
No, I don't want penalties either.
Jack does. Jack always loves penalties. Jack would just go straight to penalties if it was up to Jack.
He's not been a Spurs fan long enough. Then
Yeah, he's not experienced the pain.
give it 5 years. Isaiah, is there any changes you'd like to see? How many changes? I mean, obviously the positive, air quotation marks, was not being in Europe is fewer games. We really can play a very strong 11 in these games and not play the under 21s like we have done for the past decade, basically.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I wasn't thrilled to see that we'd drawn Fulham away. Fulham at home would seem like would definitely be a much better draw, and I'd have a lot more confidence coming in. So when the first suggestions of rotation were made, I was not happy to see that. I was like, what are we talking about? Why are we? And not from Postecoglou, because I'll take his word, but just on social media, people talking about potential rotation before his comments. I'm like, why would we want to rotate? I mean, it's got to be, up there with the very top priorities of this season to win at least one of the domestic trophies of the FA Cup or the League Cup. I mean, assuming we're not going to have some fairy tale title charge, we need to be thinking that one of those two trophies is essential, because I mean, how many more years are we going to go saying, at the end of the season that, we still haven't won a trophy. Great season under Postecoglou, great football, still haven't won a trophy. That still haven't won a trophy is going to keep just boring into our minds until we do. And it's going to, and just like it kind of did with the Pochettino group, it became kind of a recurring thing for them to not turn up in some of those biggest games. I mean, second half against Ajax aside, we played, I think, Stoke it was, to get to the League Cup final, a few moments aside, they really did seem like they were feeling that pressure that we all feel, and that I guess are putting on to them to get over the line and win one of those trophies. And so I'm hoping changes are reasonable and limited. I don't want to see, the whole back line changed out. I don't want to see both center backs. I'd rather just see one or the other if he's going to change a center back. I don't know that either of them need a break, but if they do, I'd rather it just be one of them, maybe bring the other one in when the other one comes off to get them both some rest. I can see changes in midfield because they have a lot of work to do. I mean, the stats really show how much more work the midfield is having to do than possibly they did last year. I wouldn't mind seeing Hojbjerg come in. He's on the back of my top here. I really do like Hojbjerg, but if he comes in, I'd like the other two midfielders to stay the same. I don't want to see full changes to any one of the three blocks of the team. What he wants to do with goalkeeper, having a cup keeper or not, that's up to him. That's fine. But in terms of the three outfield blocks of like units, I don't want to see wholesale changes to any of them. Maybe one change to each unit, maybe two changes on the front line. But otherwise, I'd kind of like to keep at least part of the team staying together, getting better playing together, building that chemistry, and just kind of building on that momentum and making sure we win this game so that an early League Cup exit isn't a negative turning point for the path that we're on. I think it's really important we win the game for more than just not going out of this cup, but also just for the mood to continue on the path it's on, as well as, I mean, damn, we need to win something.
Yeah, agreed. I think Ange is very different in that I think he's, like you just mentioned about keeping positive momentum and stuff like that. I think he's very sort of switched on with that. And I agree. I think there might be sort of one or two changes in each section of the pitch, but I don't think we're strong enough at the back to take both the centre backs out. I think we have to keep either one of them in. I don't know who we bring in to pair Sanchez and Davis would be horrible, I think.
You can't make two changes at the back, because the likelihood is, I know you mentioned Davis, but I think Davis will play, but I think coming for a doggy, I think if you've got he had a slight knock, look worse than what it was. I think by all accounts, I think he's fit, Udogie, but I don't know if you necessarily risk him. You bring in Sanchez, I think, who's been involved in matchday squads, so easier to bring in probably for Romero. And we haven't got anyone else because Dier, you're not bringing Dier in, you're not bringing Tanganga in. That's the option there. I think Emerson will come in. So I expect Emerson, Sanchez, Romero, Davis. I would then think that Bissouma will keep his role, Sarr will keep his role, and maybe Lascelles will come in for Maddison, has been as per Ange. And then the front three, the only thing that I could see, I see Solomon coming in, and I just wonder if Maddison could have a change of role or to beef up that midfield a little bit, and essentially have two, but one of them wide, if that makes sense up front. I just wonder if Maddison could go left and just kind of play in the line, in between the lines, if you like. One thing I did want to say, if it's okay, just back or kind of talking about teams and formations, but also about kind of style of football, and then talking about the previous managers that we've had, is just how bad this looks for Conte, and also kind of how also kind of, even though there's similarities between Postecoglou and Conte. So Conte had a defined style, and it was, this is the way we're going to play, and if you do it my way, we will win. And for a while, we kind of all got behind it, and it looked like the players got behind it. Ange has actually said something very similar. I have a way of playing. This is how we're going to play. And if you all get behind me, then I like winning and we will win. And, you know, very similar ethos. The difference is that, for me, is that there's a huge responsibility on the players. It's a really interesting dynamic. Under Ange, there's this responsibility that players have to take responsibility. But also, if it goes wrong, Ange will take responsibility. Whereas under Conte, it was, you have to do it this way. It's like a robotic movement. Now we're seeing so many kind of moving parts on the football pitch. And he spoke about kind of taking responsibility for the space. So one of the questions, the first question that Brendan on the pod asked me was whether I was surprised to see Porro playing right back again, keeping his place. The interesting thing is he doesn't actually play right back, does he? So when we're discussing these teams and who we think is going to play and what formation and everything else, the responsibility is of the players to kind of fill the spaces, not to stick to the 4-3-3, or, you know, most people have said, or some people have said, we're actually playing a 2-3-5. You know, in a lot of it's kind of like old school 1959, 1960 football, where you had these outside rights and things like that. So really, where I'm going with this is the squad of players that he's working with, I think, understand that and will take responsibility for the spaces on the pitch, rather than us kind of going, obviously you need your centre backs, but aside from that, it's all kind of like a moving feast and kind of all moves around. So when I'm saying Maddison could play here, or we might even see Maddison was everywhere on Saturday. He might play the sixth role. You just don't know, because he played it a lot on Saturday. We were working with a double pivot sometimes. So, there's a lot to kind of be excited about. And I think it'll be interesting to see kind of who plays tomorrow, but also who takes responsibility and where. I'm looking forward. I think if Lo Celso plays, it'll be really interesting to see kind of what role he takes up and where he manoeuvres himself on the pitch.
Yeah,
I'd have to agree. I mean, for me personally, I'd like to see one or two changes, just so, not for the sake of rotation, but, like Ange said, it's not about just giving them a game. It's about trying to keep people's legs safe. When you're playing such a high energy system, obviously it does take a lot out of you. So I suppose on one level, it is about offering guys a game, but equally to see who can offer something a little bit different. But also it's more about just making sure, the legs stay fit and people are on it. So, film game tomorrow? is 7:45 now. Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Have we got any score predictions? Go around the panel. Becky, score prediction for tomorrow.
Ooh, I predicted 3-1, I think, on Saturday. So the whole kind of clean sheet thing is really thrown us because I think, like I said before, with the United game, because we could have seeded so many in pre-season, maybe with the exception of the Shakhtar game, is that we really didn't know what we were going to kind of get. So having 2 consecutive clean sheets, which we haven't talked about Vicario much tonight, we must say big credit to him and how he's kind of turned it around. Very conscious. People are saying about me being all sloped. It's because I'm holding it. I've got no tripod with me, so I'm holding my iPad. So Vicario, is doing really well, isn't he? And he's kind of, it's 11:15 for me here, but it's a bit late to kind of talk about him now. Score prediction, 2-2 strikes me, which does make it sound like it will go to penalties, but I don't want it to go to penalties. It's, I think, because Fulham came back against Arsenal, didn't they, on Saturday, wasn't it? That I think that, I felt, like I said, they'll be at home, their crowd will be up for it. They'll see it as an opportunity for them to go deep in a cup as well. So, like I said, I don't think it's going to be an easy game, particularly if we do rotate people about. So yeah, I'll say 2-2, but a Spurs win.
Yes, Stuart, what's your prediction?
I'm going to go balls out 2-0. Keep the clean sheets going, which I've probably ruined it now.
Anyone striking you as a goal scorer tomorrow night?
Rishi.
Keeping the faith.
Bold.
She's going to be the hero.
Bold prediction.
Yeah. Seb, scoreline predictions.
Very similar to Stuart. I said on the podcast 2-0 with 2-0. Richie will put one over Marco Silva, who brought him to this country. I don't know if Silva's actually on the bench tomorrow, because I know he got 3 third yellow cards. So I don't know if that's just Premier League or whether it's for the League Cup as well. But yeah, also Fulham have got Man City on Saturday, so we don't know what kind of team they're going to out. It's a big consideration. Obviously, Polina is a cracking player. They've got some other very good players, but we do have a good record at Fulham. We tend to win 1-0. Quite a common result, I think, for us there. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Yeah, there's no reason not to be hopeful. What I also said on the pod was, but then in the start of the season, if we lost tomorrow, as we covered, cups are important. At least a good cup run. You don't want to go out at the you don't want to go out before the likes of Man City, Man United, and Arsenal have even started in the competition. So it's a tricky draw, but we are, on paper, we're the better team. Let's hope paper plays out and we can get that win.
Yeah, Azai, mate, what's your prediction?
Well, I am naturally inclined towards some pretty strong skepticism in general, but especially with sports and Spurs. I just have this feeling it's going to be I have this feeling we're going to lose on penalties, and it will go in at 1-1. There'll be a rotation. The attack won't be quite as they won't be kind of playing together with that chemistry because some of the rotation and some missed chances, maybe by Richarlison. I just have a feeling of things just being really difficult and being one of those games where you don't play badly, you don't deserve to lose, but it's just not your night, and you don't get the bounces, and if it comes to a shootout, I can see in my mind, like half of our players will miss. For some reason, I feel like Richarlison will take one and he'll miss. Like, I just have this very negative view of what's going to happen tomorrow night for some reason. But I sure hope I'm wrong.
Sorry, I haven't got a decent record recently in penalties, or am I making out? I beat Chelsea recently. I can't think.
Yeah.
Recently. Yeah. I
We lost to Norwich.
I remember it to Norwich. Yeah. But I'm sure there's been some more recently. I might be getting confused with Football Manager. This happens to me a lot. That I remember football Manager games as much as Tottenham games, and kind of mix the two. I'm very good on Football Manager, especially on penalties. So if that's anything to go by, we'll be fine.
I think Ange will really want to win this game. I think it's a statement of intent for him. I think he'll want to win.
Yeah, well, there'll be 3 wins in a row, right? And that's, Ange historically has slow starts at clubs he goes to. So first 4 games against Premier League sides, 3 wins and a draw against a team that has an incredible home record. Not a shabby result. There will be a show on Wednesday. And, of course, you can listen to the podcast, which Seb did. Where can they find the podcast, Seb?
All your usual providers. You stunned me there, James. Wasn't ready for that. All your usual providers. Cheese Room podcast, hosted by Bren this week with me and Paul. Just to kind of confuse everyone, what I decided to do was give completely different views on the podcast to what I've said half an hour later on the YouTube. I'm only joking. I'm very consistent in my So I think that would be kind of UK time. Should certainly be out by tomorrow morning.
Splendid. There'll also be a transfer window special show on Friday. I think, yes, there will be. I'm not sure the specific details of that, but that's going to be brilliant.
Hope so.
Hope so. Hopefully we get Van der Vaart in the last minute, eh? That'd be nice. Becky, thank you for coming on, even though you're on holiday.
All right, thanks for having me. Great hosting, James.
Thank you very much.
Nice to chat to everybody. It was really good. My Wi-Fi, I think, survived. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. I'll also say you've been holding your iPad up the entire show.
Yeah, I've been holding it.
You're a trooper. Thank you, Stuart, for coming on.
No worries.
Good chat. Thank you, Seb, as well.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
And my mate Isaiah, pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, happy to be here, mate.
Yeah, I know, man. And I'm sure you'll get a rambly text from me in about 2 hours' time. So enjoy. Look forward to that.
Sounds fantastic.
But all I've got left to say is, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.